Welcome to a book talk sponsored by Husky Trail Press. I'm Pat Pavelka, the author of this book, Guided Reading Management, Structure and Organization for the Classroom. One of the hardest things we face as teachers is that whole organization and management piece of our classrooms and also of students, especially when it comes to guided reading. This book will pull it all together for you. It will show you how you can manage and organize your classrooms and the groups so that your guided reading flows and you're not interrupted. So the book is organized into 3 different parts. Part 1 looks at, first of all, organizing the groups themselves. What are the makeup of the groups? How do you form the groups in terms of levels and students? And then once we have our groups organized, the second piece here is the scheduling of the groups. How many days a week do you schedule each group? Do you take each group the same amount of time? We will also look at scheduling and managing either 4 or 5 guided reading groups a day. We'll also look at a very successful technique in terms of the management, which is the use of background groups. Part 2 of the book has over 30 center activities for students. These center activities can be done at an actual center where you have groups of students working together, or they can actually be activities that students are working individually at their seat. It depends on what you prefer. Also, these centers never change in terms of directions. So the center is the same in terms of what do I do? How do I do this? What changes is your curriculum. So no more spending weekends making things, putting things together, coming to school on Monday, trying to explain them to students. Because once they have these centers established, it's going to be a nice flow for the rest of the year. We'll look at now some photos of classrooms that you can get a feel for them using part 1 and part 2 from the book. So let's now look at some specific photos of classrooms. Here is a first grade classroom. The teacher is here with her guided reading group. Right here on the carpet next to her is the background group. And this is a younger classroom, so the background group is working with reading boxes and practicing their reading. And then these are the students that are working on any one of those 30+ centers that are from part 2 of the book. Now let's look at the 4th grade classroom. You're going to see the same structure. Here's the teacher. She's got 5 children back here in her guided reading group. Here is the background group. Now this is an older classroom, so this background group is working with discussion boxes. They have a novel and they are working with discussing parts of that novel that they have already read. And then here are your workers working with any one of those activities from part 2. So each of these classrooms, you see the teacher with a guided reading group, you see the background group, and then you see the other students working with some of those centers. The third part of this book looks at the center rotations. How do students know where to go? How do they know what to do? When do they change? You'll see a wheel described. The wheel is one of the easiest things to use with students because you're only going to give them 2 sets of directions. That's all they ever need, 2 sets of directions with the wheel. We're also going to look in part 3 in terms of putting it all together. All those little nitty-gritty things that we need to put together in terms of the organization and the management. And the last thing that it will do is it will take you step by step through the first 4 weeks of implementing the strategies that you see here. So it will literally say, week 1, do this. Week 2, do this. So to pull it all together, 3 parts of this book. Part 1 looks at the groups themselves, organizing, setting them up, scheduling. Part 2, over 30 activities for students to do and work with while you have a group. Part 3 looks at putting it all together and the rotation piece. So you will have a fabulous time with your guided reading group once you have that management all pulled together. You will not be interrupted and your strategies will be very powerful. Thank you for spending some time with us.